Hi, everyone. I am back still on the sidelines of the Africa Tech Policy Summit, Kenya Internet Governance Forum Day. I now have the opportunity to speak to my good friend, Martin Mirero. Martin has been in the tech space for a long time, like myself. And today, again, he's accepted for me to hijack him. Martin is currently Director ICT at the Communications Authority. So this week is all about internet, ICT, tech policy. Martin, karibu.
Asante sana.
Welcome to Ali Talks Tech. And I just want you to introduce yourself, where you are at, and then we just get into this conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ali. I'm honored to be here on this great platform. And, it's a fantastic thing you're doing for the industry. You are one of the pioneers. So it's a great platform to be on. Like you mentioned, we've been at this for some time. I'm currently, we're maybe starting from the most recent, with the Communications Authority, where I'm overseeing tech, the tech function, and which is mostly corporate focused, but also has some external facing components where we support.
That's interesting. So before we go to your history, and I'd really love to delve into that, what does a director of ICT at one of the most important regulators in the industry in Kenya, what's your day like? What are all these systems that you actually are responsible for to make sure they're ticking their 99.999% uptime and stuff like that?
Well, tough one. But short answer is, I find myself firefighting more than anything else. Pushing papers and, probably not getting to do some of the more fancy deep dives in tech that, used to be fun, in the earlier part of my career. But at CA, typically on a normal day, we are, taking care of the regulatory platforms.
Yes.
There are a number of them because there are some very technical functions we have. Correct. Broadcast, frequency and resource management, licensing and so on. And all of these are backed by some sort of specialized system on ligation. Yeah, so, ensuring that this is, SLAs are being met, these are up. And of course, along with some of our other corporate systems like our ERP and CRM and other business applications. So that's the operational side, which is, mostly day to day, 50%, 60% of my time. And the other component is planning. Yeah. The world is fast-paced and accelerating now. So I think I find I'm spending more time thinking about how to adapt. And probably the third key component is just people management, just managing the team.
Yes.
And that's actually the hardest part.
That's the hardest part and the most interesting. Yeah, we do seem to forget that all these things are actually done by people.
True, absolutely.
So Martin, I want to zero in on the planning part and the adapting part. There's always this belief that policymakers and regulators are always chasing their tail when it comes to new innovations. In Kenya, we are seeing, at least in certain industries, that we saw the policymakers and regulators were actually ahead of their time. How are you navigating that? What are the things that are making you, sit up and take notice in your busy, super, super busy schedule?
It's a very relevant question. Yeah. And I think it's one I'm still asking myself. Yeah, but frankly, it's I think we're living at a watershed moment, We're on a tipping point of accelerated development from, and this is a bit cliche, the emerging technologies, I think they've really matured.
Well, I mean, it's not really cliche anymore. We are seeing it happening every day.
Yeah, no, we're having a conversation earlier about,
Yes.
our kids now.
Exactly.
It's native to them.
Yes.
So, how they interact and navigate the world now is completely different. And it plays out in a similar way in the one place. And I think, as you mentioned, traditionally we tended to lag the industry in terms of regulation, and that the phrase chasing our tail.
Yes.
And of course we are challenged by jurisdictions where they're very progressive, and we've had those examples too with the oft quoted M-Pesa.
Correct.
Had a light touch model at the onset and sort of took shape before regulating it. So I think one of the themes we've picked up on for our strategy the next 4 years is responsive regulation, which sort of admits that we don't have the answers.
I love that. Can we spend a few more minutes on that? What is responsive regulation?
So it's underpinned mainly by listening. Yeah, by having an ear on the ground, our environment, the industry, our licensees, the operators, the ICT players.
Yeah.
That we have some regulatory mandate over, and creating, like I mentioned earlier, a regulatory sort of a regulatory sandbox, which I know is something that's been tried out, like with the CMA, but look at it from a more technology-driven perspective. So be able to create a platform where, young, innovators or, startups,
yes,
and other private sector players can get access to limited data, licensing data, perhaps market, functionality, some licensing, control licensing, and test out ideas. So I think responsive regulation, in summary, it's just being responsive, being ready to adapt and support what the market is telling us.
Yes, what us in the private sector call market driven.
Excellent. That's it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How is the sandbox going?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's moved a bit slower than we would have hoped.
Okay.
I think it should have been out in the market by beginning of this year.
Okay.
But we had set ourselves a target of end of June.
Okay.
So about 6 weeks. We do have the basic components in place, at least from the tech perspective, the portal and so on. And I think the different technical departments are also aware of their roles within that as soon as it goes live and start coming in. But I think if I reflect on it a bit, it may have been interesting to actually sandbox the sandbox.
That's interesting.
Put it out there and let's co-develop the sandbox with the industry.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
True. It's not too late because I think you've worked in the private sector, and as I was reflecting earlier about your career, and you have a unique perspective because you've worked for established private sector companies. You've worked for startups in the tech ecosystem. You've worked for government, different parts of government. I think you are at eCitizen at some point, and now you are at the regulator. How has your experiences in both private and public sector shaped the Martin I know today?
Well, yeah, Ali, well, that sounds like there's quite some history there. Eh? When I reflect on it, I think it's taken shape as three main phases when I look back, connect the dots, sort of, as it were. I think the early phase was really finding my feet, and I found that I got some broad experience with startups, and I think I've felt maybe at early stage of a career in tech, it's a good opportunity to get to work with a startup because you tend to test out different areas,
many things.
Yes, many things. Yeah. So I learned quite a bit about myself, maybe my interest, that the things I'd assumed I was good at, probably I figured out, well, maybe not. And so it was a journey, that phase of learning and figuring out where I can add value. And then the second phase was really getting into now the management of teams in tech, as well as projects for larger startups, and more than anything else, when I look back, I think that humbled me in a sense.
Yeah,
I realized that it's the private sector is extremely dynamic, and it's a hard place to play, and to consistently add value. So this last phase has really been the one. I don't know. I used to think of it as a soft landing, but
interesting.
But government gave me another perspective too. That there's a role for bureaucracy. I know it sounds.
Could you expand a little bit on that?
There's. I'm reminded of this concept of building an institution.
Yes.
And or the machine. And when you build this machine, you can sort of let it run.
Right.
And
that's foundational.
That foundation, and be assured that there are controls, checks and balances. Of course, inefficiencies arise from that. And I think of government as that machine that enables, brings actors together, enables things to work in a predictable way, not as fast as we would like. But I got that perspective that it's not easy to serve the public without that machinery,
And the boring stuff that makes things move.
Yeah.
But we seem to want to always get rid of them.
Absolutely. That boring stuff. I think I got to respect it a bit more, and understood why, as much as it seems contradictory, we actually need that bureaucracy and machine.
So many people speak to government about wastefulness. From your role as director of ICT at the Communications Authority, how are you helping this year? Maybe to step back a bit and to just tell my viewers that the Communications Authority is actually recognized as one of the foremost tech or ICT regulators in Africa. It has won quite a number of awards. So, we have to recognize that, and we have to say kudos to them. But back to you, Martin, your role as ICT, how do you see that evolving in relation to ensuring that the machinery is working, but a lot more efficiently? Getting rid of paper, I know it's difficult with government because that bureaucracy is almost in the DNA.
Yeah.
So how do you see that evolving?
Oh, thanks, Ali, and thanks for the accolades. And so sometimes I remind myself standing on the shoulders of giants. Correct came before, and correct, and from the time, see, it was a small offshoot of the bigger KPTC that was broken up. But fast forwarding to where we are, I do acknowledge that government also has to evolve in tandem with the expectations of the citizens. And many of those expectations have been shaped by the private sector. They're consumers of innovative, fast-moving products, and their attention is limited.
Yes.
So we have to adapt to that as well. And one of the flagship programs that we've been undertaking is on automating our licensing regime and the licensing processes through the licensing management system, the LMS. It's a project we've been undertaking for a couple of years now.
At what stage are you at?
It's fairly advanced.
Interesting.
Yes, fairly advanced.
Is it already in use? At least in phases?
We're looking to hopefully start on that phase deployment from the new financial year, July moving.
Second half is about 2 months from now.
Yes. So, and I think that will unlock a lot of the inefficiencies that we've encountered, and I think we'll also learn quite a bit about what our licensees, what our market, and of course the end consumers, what I expect from the CA. Because one thing that often is forgotten is that we are actually an escalation point for complaints from all our service providers and all our...
Yeah, so apart from licensing, you're also receiving complaints about quality of service and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And that has, once it is raised, it actually becomes a mandate
that you must respond to it and progress it to its conclusion.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Wow. So getting consumer sensitized to that too, but you're not only at the mercy of your provider. You can.
So it's interesting to use the term. I see this almost like this is the CA is a B2B2C shakes organization. Yeah, amazing. Martin, thank you so much for the time. I know you have to dash back to the office, but you got a busy day yourself. I have taken the liberty to speak to a couple of my colleagues in the industry on the sidelines of this Kenya ICT Action Network KITANET event. Sante sana, brother.
No, thank you.
No more on talking.
Oh yes,
I'm honored to have you on this platform of mine. Asante sana, brother.
Thank
you very much.
All right,
guys.